Hi all, and thanks for allowing me to come here today and to speak with you. I've been looking very much forward to it. Let me just find my slides here. I hope that you can all see my slides. So what I'll be talking about today is I'll start out with a short story about how we can have all the right intentions, but using the wrong metrics to measure it. So I'm Tommy. I work in Biogen. I'm the Associate Director for Digital Third-Party Medias and Innovations across EU, Europe, Canada, and partner markets. And one of the things that falls under my responsibility is Biogen's Voice of the Customer program. I was happy that I sat through some of the earlier sessions today and could see that customer experience is a topic that was being discussed, and rightfully enough, I think giving the right words with it. So voice of the customer program is actually just a fancy word for customer experience measurement and customer experience management. Because one thing is obviously to measure, but we also then need to do something with the data that we get in. Customer experience, one of the things that I normally is one of the comments I normally get is that well, it's not rocket science, and I agree, it's not, unfortunately, because if it was only rocket science, it would be easy, because rocket science is mathematics, it's physics, it's beautiful simple formulas, it's an exact science. But customer experience is not that exact science. We don't have yet the right formulas, and also everyone seems to be an expert of it. So I'm going to start out with a short story that was an internal story, but also external. It's with one of our vendors and some of my colleagues. We do have this global vendor that we have to use and have to work with. And internally, and with some of my colleagues, we were hearing a lot that these guys are difficult to work with. It's unclear timelines. There seems to be no proofreading whatsoever. It's much easier to work with other companies. Can't we just work with our own vendors? It's always delayed. So we took that back to the vendor and gave them that feedback. And they said, on the other hand, well, our customers are happy with our deliverables. We have a satisfaction score of above 4 out of 5. And actually, the delays are mostly the customer's fault. They always come back with 4, 5, or 6 review rounds rather than the 2 that we have agreed. And the clients don't always know what the best solution is. So that seems to be the Apple argument with the phone, isn't it? That it's not their fault that the antenna didn't work. It's just the customers that cramps it too hard. So when we went back to our internal colleagues, we said to them, well, this is what the vendor tells us. They have a satisfaction score of more than 4.5. Why do you rate them this high if they're not good to work with? And what they said, and they then showed us the surveys that was used, and surely they asked, so how satisfied are you with whatever they were being that was delivered? And they said, well, we are satisfied with what's being delivered because they didn't design it. They just produced it. One of the other questions was on the overall look and feel, how satisfied are you? And again, they said they didn't design it, so this has nothing to do with the vendor. However, the process was not good. So what to do? Because clearly the vendor had all the right intentions by measuring their customers' experience. And their sort of starting point was, well, we want satisfied customers. And that is also what I hear when I speak to a lot of the management teams throughout Europe, but also a lot of my colleagues in other pharma and some of the vendors that we work with. We just need satisfied customers. I want my customers to be extremely satisfied. And I'm here today to tell you that I don't agree with that. And there's actually a lot of evidence that don't agree with that either. So where did it all go wrong? Where did it start? I think it started with back in the old days when we started out measuring customer experience. It was all about satisfaction, customer satisfaction. And it says how the score that's used there, it's called the CSAT score. It says how would you rate your overall satisfaction with the goods or service you received. But it centers on this concept of satisfaction. What is satisfaction? I think that's probably as easy to answer as what is happiness. That's completely individual. What is satisfaction for me might not be satisfactory to others. Also, it's a subject to response bias. And we know that out of the CX measures that we have available, this is probably the one that has the weakest indication of likely future behavior. So it was known that something needed to happen. Then back in 2003, long time ago, I know, Bain developed the Net Promoter Score, and everyone here, I'm sure, knows knows Net Promoter Score. I'm also sure that everyone here has an opinion on the Net Promoter Score. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it useful? Is it not? But what we can say that actually there are a number of studies that suggesting that there's a reasonable correlation between revenue growth and improved Net Promoter Score and loyalty as the Net Promoter Score measures. But still, it was like something was missing. So back in 2010, then already 11 years, well, 10 and a half years ago, that was back in August 2010, this article came out. It was in the Harvard Business Review, Stop Trying to Delight Your Customers. If you haven't read it already, please do an exception of reading old articles and go back and find this one, because it's a truly beautiful piece if you're into customer experience. It was a true paradigm shift in the way that we should measure customer experience and what matters to our customers. They decided to figure out, so what actually correlates with customer experience and future behavior, and what they found was that 20% of the satisfied customers actually intended to leave the company in question. They did a large study of more than 75,000 or more than 70,000 customers, more than several hundred in-depth interviews with companies and customers. They also found that 28% of the dissatisfied customers intended to stay with the company in question. So with this in hand, we could actually go out and say that we should dissatisfy our customers or annoy our customers. I don't think we want to do that. It also showed that negative customer experience, people who had a negative customer experience are far more likely to share that than if they had a good customer experience. They also found that loyalty has a lot more to do with how we deliver on our basic promises to our customers than the dazzling experience and how great that might be. So going that extra mile actually did not result in increased loyalty. But what they found, and they'll introduce this new metric that I'll come to in a minute, they found that the customers who reported that they had to put in a low effort in the transaction that they were doing, 94% that they would come back, 88% said that they would actually increase their spending. Conversely, if you look at the ones who reported high effort, 81% that they would actually have spread a negative word of mouth, whereas that was only 1% of those who had to put in a low effort. So they gave them the idea that actually effort might be the metric that we need to measure on. So delighting customers doesn't build loyalty, but reducing the effort does. And they introduced then the customer effort score, and they saw, as I've just mentioned to you, that there is that the customer effort score is far more superior to the CSAT score, but also the NPS score in predicting future behavior. So if you want loyal customers, if you want customers who come back to us and increase their engagement with us, we should be measuring the effort that they have to put into it. And so that's the missing piece. That is what I think we should look more into. Even though I know that it's not a new thing, it was developed back in 2010, as I said, but in pharma, we tend to adopt certain things at a lower pace than in some other places. It focuses on promoting the ease of use. And throughout the last couple of years, we've seen that there's a concept called the effortless customer. It's also a great book that I could recommend if any of you is into that the effortless customer, so the effortless customer experience, is what wins. It's particularly useful in B2B environments, and it's particularly good measurement for assessing how well we execute on the basics. It's, however, not that great in potentially showing if we differentiate our service to others. So we might want to follow up with some other metrics also. It can be the CSAT score, or it can be the Net Promoter Score, or it can be other questions as a follow-up where we ask them, so why did you give us that score? What was the reason for your score? I want to spend just the, and so coming back to that early case, had they used the customer effort score, the vendor had probably seen that they were not easy to work with. The quality of their product was not the issue. It was more around the processes. So what drives a good customer experience in pharma? Because obviously the product is what the product is. And what is it that our customers want from us? So in 2018, this report came out from DG Associates and Aptus, and I think was absolutely brilliant in examining what are the important elements of a good customer experience in pharma. They found that relevant content and for a trusted source and simple interactions was actually the three key things to consider. And if we take our websites as an example, or a webinar as today, well, the content must be deemed relevant, otherwise they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't have clicked on the link that drove them there in the first place. Also, they must have decided that today, at least, they would find Pharma as a trustful source. So that's also checked off. So what we can do is that we can try and make it as simple for them. So if they do have a follow-up question, what do they do after reviewing our content on a website, for instance? Do we make them look in the footer for a contact section where they may be able to find an email, and then they can write an email and 3 days later they might get an answer? Or do we actually have someone waiting in a live chat for them to post their questions to? Probably not. So this was what I had planned to bring with me today. If there are questions, I'm happy to receive some of that or comments.
Tommy, there are some questions.
Yeah.
You see those on next main stage on the chat section. And actually, we have quite good comments and a couple of questions. Like, for instance, have you considered a digital assistant to manage first point of contact? And
yes.
You can see the other questions as well in the chat section.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's a beautiful question, the digital assistant. And yes, we have considered that. We actually have one live now. If you go to biosimilarsmedicalacademy.com, you'll see the first version of that digital assistant we're working on right now to make it more engaging and also make it capable of answering more questions. Live chat with an MSL support may be useful. I definitely agree with you, Crystal, there. We've suggested that for our compliance colleagues a number of times. I think we're getting there. We also need someone to manage that, but I think that should be the least of it. If physicians actually want to have a live chat with us, I think we should definitely have someone there ready for them. Load, if the same formula applies to patients, I don't know, to be honest. I haven't checked for that. I think that might be the topic for the next Pharma. Simplicity. If Daria, do you just want me to take them one by one afterwards, or do you pick out some?
Up to you, so no worries.
Okay, I can take them one by one, and I assume that you'll let us know once time is up. Okay, thanks. How do we measure CS in our organization? That's a very good question, because actually the beautiful thing about the NPS and the CSAT score is that they're fixed questions. The CES metric can be measured through at least a few different questions. We use a statement saying that the physician then needs to agree with. We're saying that it was easy for me to join this webinar today, and then we ask them to agree to 1 to 5, either completely disagree through completely agree. The key compliance issues with the live chat is, what if someone takes a screen dump and then shares it with someone who's not a physician? That is literally the main issue these days. So how do we drive impact from CS results or improvement? Well, impact and improvement are two different things. Impact, we haven't gotten to that yet because we haven't been live with it long enough so that we can actually measure an impact through it. And the thing is that we always ask to show impact while knowing that there are a lot of good studies out there that show impact in organizations introducing the CES in a good way. And one of the challenges that I'm actually facing is the not invented here syndrome. That, well, I don't know if it's like that in your organizations as well, but in many organizations that I've been within, it's always the fact that we see what others are doing, and then instead of doing the same thing, we say, well, we think that we can actually make the wheel rounder or reinvent the wheel here and make it even better. I don't think that's the case. How we drive improvements, though, I can say, is that we make it mandatory so that when you then create a new webinar, that you have to look at the feedback you got from the first webinar and explain, so what was the changes that needs to be done. It could also be that we don't need to make any changes. We are just fantastic, and that's all good. The link to the existing chatbot, well, I can biosimilarsmedicalacademy.com. The chatbot is called Beth. She's absolutely fantastic. The other one is how a sales team using impact scores like CES. I am not actually in a position to tell you that right now because we're piloting that, and I'd rather not tell that yet. Yeah, I'll be happy to connect in the chat afterwards. So thank you, Derry, and thanks for all the questions and engagements. Thanks.